All right, very good. We're back. Maybe I can start with sort of an innocuous question. Are there any questions thus far? That's my question.
It's all clear.
It's all clear. Om, said the Mighty One. It's probably rather a sustained sound, wouldn't you say? Lasting millions of years, that kind of thing. There's a long breath. Planetary Logos is a long breath, but he just has to think he's breathing, and then he's breathing.
But now you've covered the involution part. When are we moving on?
Just be patient, be patient. Evolution isn't all that it's cracked up to be. We'll round the turn pretty soon. Okay. So now we have this cosmic note sounding beneath everything. I just want to make sure I'm recording. The screen's on. I'm unmuted. I'm being recorded from several angles. Okay. Have to have my checklist, you know. Om, said the Mighty One. He breathed forth to the fifth plane, the plane which is the burning ground where all of the self-conscious beings have a vehicle, the meeting place for fire, to rid ourselves of the great illusion and enter into a higher state of consciousness. This time, a cosmic note is heard beneath the sound systemic. Now, do we have any ideas of what that actually means, that a cosmic note is heard beneath the note systemic, and why it would be so? Any thoughts? Why suddenly a cosmic note? Because we've been dealing with the solar system, haven't we? That's what we've had so far, our solar system. We've had our planetary logo sounding forth within his own system, and when he reached the fifth plane, this is the first time a cosmic note has appeared.
Because it looks as if it's on its way and quite reasonable, so it's worth a cosmic note.
It's worth a cosmic note. It's not just, it's right. You're almost there, so let us give you a little help. Well, I think, you know, it has a lot to do with the solar angels who are to be invoked. Remember yesterday we discussed that when the 30 billion laggards refused to enter, there was a parley which took place between great Chohans. Maybe, what was it? Was it I forget who it was. Well, certainly the Chohans were involved, and maybe their prototypes and certain great beings from the cosmic mental plane. And they all decided that not until the 14th, 7th would it be allowed for those who had held back to have opportunity again. So again, the cosmic mental plane was involved. I believe it's the cosmic mental plane that's involved here, and I believe that because the solar angels are essentially sponsored from the cosmic mental plane, since Sirius has a kind of cosmic mental polarization anyway, whereas our solar logos does not yet, that it is because of this solar angelic intervention that a cosmic note is going to be heard. You know, when it comes to the fifth great Lord, he is the most developed of them all, isn't he? The fifth ray Lord is the most luminous of all the ray lords and the farthest developed, isn't he? And the analogy there is that Venus is the most unfolded of all the planets at this time. So it has to do with preparation for the solar angelic intervention, I think. This time a cosmic note is heard. So the true home of the solar angels, in a sense, is the cosmic mental plane. Sounds are going forth from the solar logos. We've been dealing with the sound systemic, and a planetary logos would sound a planetary sound. Now a cosmic mental sound is coming forth. It is suggested actually that the Buddha had an amazing contact with the cosmic mental plane. He had a cosmic touch, just the way the Christ had a cosmic touch for the cosmic astral plane. Okay, the stanza seems to suggest that a sound systemic was not heard when the sound went forth in relation to the Atmic and Buddhic planes. I don't know why I wrote that. The fire, okay, so in other words, the coming in of the solar angels, which is basically where this stanza is going to end, um, requires the attention of the cosmic mental plane. After all, what is the home of the solar angels? When we're told at the fourth initiation they are released and they go back to the what? Well, at the fourth initiation, why don't I put on my headphones? Hello. Sorry. Just if I start talking without headphones, just let me know. I mean, they will all hear it in the distance, you know. But there's so many things on my checklist that I just am going to have to develop some seventh ray here before long. Anyway, what was the question I just asked? Yes. What is their home? Where do they return to? And where is the heart of the sun? Well, actually, there's something on the cosmic astral called the subjective sun. It's a kind of sometimes the heart of the sun, subjective sun are the same terms, but then there is some aspect of the sun's manifestation which is found on the cosmic astral plane, and indeed the solar angels have a lot to do with the cosmic astral plane because that's probably where their monads are anyway, but the heart of the sun is not on the cosmic astral plane. Because what is the heart of the sun? Okay, let's see what Neptune. See, Neptune. It depends on what we mean, because the plane of the heart of the sun. See, what is the definition? The definition of the heart of the sun. The definition. We ought to know that by now. Heart of the sun, definition. Okay, it will come to you. Let's just wait until it does. We haven't got that long to live. Don't think we can. It is the egoic lotus of the solar logos. That is the heart of the sun and the consciousness of it. On the cosmic mental plane, the heart of the sun is on the higher aspect of the cosmic mental plane, so that when the solar angels return, after investing themselves in human evolution, they return to the higher cosmic mental plane where the egoic lotus and soul causal body of the solar logos is found. Some of them also mysteriously, I'm not sure how yet, but return to the central spiritual sun. That's kind of really interesting. I mean, does that mean they return to the triadal nature of the solar logos or something of that nature? Maybe. So anyway, they go to a very high place when they return, and they emanate from a very high place. And because that is their place of emanation, when they are required to be mobilized, there has to be a conference involving the higher cosmic mental plane and the great being in which they find themselves. Because our little solar angels are emanations of a still greater solar angel, which has, I think, its higher principles off the chart. You know, I think DK didn't give us enough charts to show us where the higher nature of that great being of which the solar angels are a part comes from. So anyway, the higher mental plane, or the cosmic mental plane, was involved earlier when they were trying to figure out, okay, what do we do with these rebellious solar angels, at least as the Puranas saw it. And now it's involved as well when the solar logos is stimulating with a word for the mental plane in the creative process. So what did we have before? We had a formula. Didn't we have a 35-fold formula, which is what we studied? We had the A, the AU, the AUM. Then we had the sevenfold word. Then we had a formula with 35 aspects to it. Something like that, 35? Yeah, it was 35 stanzas. That's it. Okay. All right. The fire within, the fire without, meet with the fire ascending. How should we apportion these fires? we do have customarily 3 fires, but these are electric fire, solar fire, and fire by friction. But are these represented here? It would seem like the fire without is fire by friction because it's external, right? This is external fire. The fire within can be the fire of the soul, but in a way we don't really have the soul yet, do we? The fire ascending can be aspirational. Fire within, fire without, let's see, perhaps more of what we have, but we do not have yet the formation of the soul. It hasn't come about. Fire ascending is the aspirational energy coming from the lower form. If we want to talk about how individualization occurred back in the old days on the moon chain, it wasn't in this way. It was because the form did aspire and did somehow touch its own nature. So I think, finally, does not account for electric fire, which would be more closely related to the fire within. I think that's it. That the fire of the spirit and spirit/triad is fire within. The fire, external fire, is fire without. So fire by friction is fire without, and the spirit and triad fire is, I already said that. And what is the other one? Fire with, fire ascending, that's aspirational energy. What does it say? Fire without, meet with the fire ascending. Fire within, fire without, fire ascending. Okay, that's fire by friction, and then let's just say upward tending fire by friction is the fire of aspiration, and that is fire ascending. At least at the present moment, that's how I see it. Because we don't really have solar fire yet. This is one of those, well, we have it, but it's not encapsulated yet in an egoic vehicle, not in this. All right. The guardians of the cosmic fire, the devas of phohatic heat, watched o'er the forms that formless stood. Well, these can well be the solar angels themselves. This is presumably coming from the cosmic mental plane. The guardians of cosmic fire, well, they could be very high Rajadeva lords of the solar planes, but this is not necessarily a foregone conclusion. They could be those devas upon the cosmic physical who guard the effects of cosmic fire, or simply the watchers of the flame, as we have been calling them, watchers of the flame. So anyway, cosmic, the minute we get into cosmic fire, you think about the name of the book. This is a book called The Treatise on Cosmic Fire. It's not all about the fire of the systemic planes. It's not. It doesn't just stop there. If it's cosmic fire, it relates to the cosmic planes. So this book is more about the fire of the cosmic mental plane than anything else. Madame Blavatsky wrote a book called The Secret Doctrine, which spent a great deal of its theme and exposition on the nature of the solar angels, or the, whatever she called them, the returning nirvanis, and so forth. Then along comes Master DK in a second kind of installment, and he writes about cosmic fire, which is really originally the fire of the cosmic mental plane. So much of this book is about solar fire, but what is the origin of solar fire? It is the higher cosmic mental plane. And where does solar fire work out on our cosmic physical plane? The second, third, and fourth subplanes. Okay, or simply the watchers of the flame. These could be the guardians of of cosmic fire. How does it, the guardians of the cosmic fire? These could be, these on the systemic mental plane could be the guardians of the cosmic fire, CF, okay, cosmic fire, from the cosmic mental plane. The devas of phohatic heat. Well, However, this is principally the action of Fohat, and Fohat is related to the Brahmic aspect. So we are reminded we are dealing principally with the action of the third aspect of divinity, which has been given the name Brahma and Fohat, as well as other names. So we want to ask, to what extent are the solar angels related to Brahma and Fohat, cosmically? And they are called sons of mind, and sometimes divine sons of mind. Are they related to Brahma and Fohat? Anyway, they certainly have a very strong monastic aspect to them. So the guardians of the cosmic fire, the devas of Fohatic heat, watched o'er the forms and formless stood. Well, that's what makes me think that the solar angel hypothesis here is not too far off, because the watchers are always trying to say, are these forms good enough for us to enter? Now, we're told in the secret doctrine that they came in this, where did they come in? Was it the second round or the third round? They came in well before they had to actually merge with animal man, and they said, these forms are no good. Let us dry them. And then they applied very fierce fire to killing off the monstrous forms. This is one of those big stories in the secret doctrine. Have you read about that? How the laws came in, disapproved of the forms which nature unaided had tried to create because nature was not intelligent enough to do so, and said, we can't use those forms, we will destroy them. And they were very watery forms. And the interesting thing about the forms is that they were built up of the remnants of the previous round. They were, and it may have been the third round, they were built up of all kinds of animal-like constituents which were combined in an ungodly way. So, you would have, like literally a fish with a goat's head. You would have all kinds of monstrous combinations when nature unaided tried to make the vehicles for man. Then in the fourth round, they could be made. Now, the solar angels were not making them. The solar angels did not participate in the making of the forms of the first 3 or 2.5 races, but they judged them to be adequate. And then they were able to inform those particular forms. So anyway, because the word watched is used, the solar angels, I think, could be involved. The solar angels, as watchers, could be involved in this process. Well, why were the solar angels so judgmental? Well, here's the thing again. We're judging by human standards. There's a plan, and somehow being part of the heart of the sun, being on the higher cosmic mental plane, they really know what the plan is. And they really know that if the lower forces have not built forms suitable to that plan, there's no use getting involved. So the judgment, again, Libra in a way, evaluation, Venus, solar angel, that judgment is in order to keep their actions square with the plan, I think. Okay. So these cosmic etheric forms, formless stood because they had not yet molded denser forms upon the 3 lower levels of the cosmic physical plane. This is at least one interpretation, because it's really strange. They watched o'er the forms that formless stood. What a strange combination of words. But in a way, these molds on the higher planes had not yet descended like ideas into the lower planes and created physical forms within the dense physical body of the solar logos. So these are higher forms which formless stood. I think that's one way of understanding it. Okay, these formless stood waiting a point in time. Now, what is this point of time? This is the time for the animating of these cosmic etheric forms, that point in the creative process where there is to be an animating descent of these higher forms into the plane of cosmic density. the gaseous, liquid, and physically dense levels of the manifestation of the solar logos. So that point of time is when the ethers and the lower matter have to come together. Isn't that the way it is for a human being too? You know, for a long time, there's no physical, even though the soul is preparing to reincarnate for maybe 10 years, 13 years, however long it takes, you know, descending slowly, appropriating the vehicle. Sometimes it's much faster. Sometimes a fast incarnation is taken because you didn't disrupt your astral and mental vehicle. You know, you can deserve that kind of condition where you don't go all the way back up to the solar angel, but you just stop here on the astral plane and return quickly. So in cases of quick return, it may be the case of the non-disruption of the mental vehicle, like we were talking about this morning. We say after you die, well, the astral vehicle is disrupted. The mental vehicle is disrupted, but not all the time. DK tells us that if we have established continuity of consciousness, then there is not a disruption. There need not be a disruption, and you can take a rapid reincarnation without losing what you've pulled together in your mental vehicle and your astral vehicle. So that might be an appealing process to some of us if we want to come right back in and get busy, you know. Or maybe some of us are looking for a rest in a nice nirvanic resort, perhaps. You know, I mean, by the side of an azure blue sea, so let's say, an astral sea or devachanic sea. Anyway, DK tells us that devachan is a state of very subtle illusion and selfishness, but very enjoyable, you know, the way most illusions are for a while. So he does tell us there comes a time when we can rebuke or cast away our devachanic possibility. We have learned enough so that we don't need it to assemble a lot of materials for the next incarnation. So a point has come, a point in the creative process when there is to be an animating descent of these higher ideas and energy patterns into the lower cosmic dense levels, which are our lower three planes, and then the forms will not formless stand. The higher forms will have lower forms. All right, everything is well prepared and molded before it is activated and animated, and this is characteristic of the planning of the creative process in general, of the planning. Okay. One has to keep on reading these things in sequence so that it becomes clear what we're really talking about. The fire within, we're calling it sort of spirit monadic fire. The fire without, we'll call that fire by friction. Meet with the fire ascending, we'll call that aspirational fire by friction. The guardians of cosmic fire, the devas of phohatic heat, well, they are certainly, whatever kind of devas they are great ones, watched o'er the forms that formless stood, waiting a point of time. Now, it could be the Rajadeva lords of the planes on which these forms are supposed to take place. I cannot tell whether these are solar angels or whether they're more along the line of the third aspect and Phohat. It may be that they are more Phohatic and Brahmic. Let's see, going back just a bit, waiting a point. The cosmic etheric form, the solar angelic watches could be involved in the process, but maybe the great beings are more Brahmic or Phohatic than the solar angels actually are. So we can't solve that one immediately. Waiting a point of time, etc., etc. The builders of a lesser grade, devas who work with matter, wrought at the forms. Now, when you wrought, you know, I don't even know what is the present tense verb for wrought. Wrought is the past tense. Is it rend, W-R-E-N-D, or it's like work at. They worked at the forms. I can paraphrase it, but I don't know the exact verb. They wrought at the forms. So lower grade devas were working at these mental forms. We are on the mental plane at this time. And they are trying to refine them and get them into the right shape, but probably still the higher mental plane. We could assume that these were unconscious devas of the mental plane who work under the direction of the Rajadeva Lord Agni, who is one of who, in one of his aspects, is the Lord of the solar mental plane. Matter, in this case, is the substance energy within the dense physical body of the solar logos, or the lower three solar planes, as I said. And could we say that the forms are being molded on the higher levels of the fifth solar plane? The reason I want to say the higher levels is we're likely to have conscious devas there. The minute we descend into the lunar realms of the lower mind, astral body, and etheric physical body, the devas start to become many, and many of them unconscious. Let us just say, in general, that forms are being prepared, and let us see for what they are being prepared. Are they fully animated yet? Even though the word matter is used, is the word matter used here? Yes. The builders of a lesser grade, devas who work with matter, wrought at the form. So even though the word matter is being used, we have not really descended lower probably than the mental plane or the higher mental plane. All right. Okay. Well, okay. Wrought at the forms, we say that blah, blah, blah. Matter in this case is the substance energy within the dense physical body of the solar logos. Okay. Could we say that the forms are being molded on the higher levels of the fifth solar plane? Even though the word matter is used, it would seem that thus far, the greater process, we have descended no lower than the systemic mental plane, and perhaps just the higher aspect of it. Okay, and perhaps the higher aspect of it, but not with certainty. In the case that this is correct, the devas of the systemic astral plane and systemic mental physical plane are not yet involved, and indeed it seems that they are not yet involved, even though the word matter is used. Okay, let us continue. They stood in fourfold order. These forms, any ideas about that? They stood in fourfold order. What could that mean, and why? When you're looking at this map, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe I've gone too far. When you're looking at this map, is there anything on the map that could remind us of the fourfold order that we are talking about? These forms stood in fourfold order. These molds, these empty vessels, which are not yet completely animated. Yeah. Could it be the triangles? Well, I'll tell you, I'm not sure. When I read about fourfold order and the kind of creativity that's being done here, I keep on thinking of the difference between substance and matter. In other words, the 4 underlies the 3. You know, when we've looked at this map, we always see 4 above and 3 below, don't we? Here's the 4 cosmic ethers, and here are the 3 dense levels. On any one of these subplanes, there's always 4 above and 3 below, 4 above and 3 below. So maybe we are talking about a kind of etheric creativity on the mental plane. So in other words, on the mental plane, why fourfold order? Have the builders of the 4 cosmic ethers been involved? This is a possibility, though the builders of the monadic plane, logoic plane, have seemed so remote, maybe not. Or are we thinking of the 4 subplanes of the systemic mental plane, where creative forms may be awaiting activation? Or are we thinking that the higher 4 subplanes of the mental plane, which are analogous to the 4 ethers, are the subplanes on which the forms are to be found? In other words, I'm thinking etherically here. I'm saying subtle forms are being created, And wherever subtle forms are created, you have some kind of etheric presence, and these forms then have to descend from the ether into the dense levels. So that's what makes me think the fourfold order relates to the four ethers on any of the planes where the building is going on. Okay, anyway, that's a speculation. All right. Upon the threefold levels, upon the threefold levels in empty silence stood the forms. Now, here the term threefold levels suggests atmic, buddhic, and mental planes. Apparently forms have been created upon all those planes, but the forms are not yet animated. They are forms which possess the soul of matter, the anima mundi, but not the consciousness of the second aspect of divinity, or even the first. So we have been talking about work on the atmic plane, work on the buddhic plane, work on the mental plane. So those are the threefold levels, I think. Forms are being created on all those levels, but they don't have life yet. And whereon, let's just say, on these three planes, can it be that the forms, empty forms, are on the etheric part of these three levels, which are atmic, buddhic, and mental? Now, what's very interesting here is that when you go to the mental plane, for the first time you get a kind of strange reversal. How is the division between etheric and dense different on the mental plane than on the buddhic or the atmic, the buddhic or atmic plane? In other words, how is the mental plane divided? Take a look. It's divided as 3 and 4, isn't it? But that does not necessarily mean, what it does is it places the fourth subplane in a peculiar position, doesn't it? The fourth subplane is considered rupa and dense, and yet it's part of the four ethers of the mental plane. So it can be that these forms are also on the fourth sublevel of the mental plane, whereon we find the mental unit as well. So I find this very interesting. Now, there is an occult tradition that on the spiritual plane, the nirvanic plane, the atmic plane, there is another causal body. It's I saw some, my friend showed me some old Masonic papers where, it's the only place I've ever seen it, where that vehicle on the higher atmic plane was demonstrated. And it seems that in order to break into full monadic identification, you have to have a destructive process on the higher atmic plane. So it might be that the atmic plane 2, which is a kind of mental plane, 1, 2, 3, also has a 3 and a 4 division. It is possible. But that's so occult that DK is not really getting into that. Suffice it to say that if the forms stand in fourfold order, the fourness we have on this map has to do with the etheric levels. And etherics create the mold. In other words, the mold for your physical body is etheric. The mold for all dense forms in the lower worlds of mind, emotion, and body is cosmic etheric. Whenever you make a mold, it's etheric, M-O-U-L-D. So that's how it seems to me. Any other ideas on that? Because all we can do is put forth speculations as to what seems reasonable. Now, if it really fits together under the law of correspondences, then we know for sure. But that seems reasonable to me, or at least reasonable enough to, to accept as worthy of thought. The etheric, maybe I should use my computer as an oracle for kind of a yes-no, you know? Like when it's a no, it starts to act up, blink, and circle. And when it's a yes, it behaves. Do you think? Okay. So on these three planes, which are the Atmic, Buddhic, and Manasic, those are the only ones we've been talking about so far, the forms are empty standing, awaiting, what did we call it, the flood. Were those the words, the flood? You have this this stanza in front of you, don't you? Probably so you can, all right. You think so? Have you found that out? Okay, why don't I do that? Because, Skype is so stubborn that it doesn't close down by itself. I have to go and Control-Alt-Delete. But I'm afraid if I press the button too hard, right-click it? Really? This button. This program is not responding. Okay, let's see. And now. Okay, not responding, not responding. All that not responding. Close the. Okay, and close down, you're saying close down Explorer, even though it holds the GoToWebinar program? Would you suggest this? No, it's all right. This will not. I think I better be very careful right now. I just have that feeling, that it's a moment for caution. I think but you know what? I can actually make something disappear. Well, I have no trouble making things disappear, actually. Yes, no, this is okay. All right, all right. Now. Whew. All right, very good. Maybe that'll help. Could that be why your screen was blinking the other day? Oh, it was a different thing. All right. All right, thank you for that little technical assist. Let's see if it made any good. Anyway, we've been dealing with three forms, three planes, three spheres, and the activation on these three spheres. It's a bit like the very first stanza we read. Om, said the Mighty One, three times, atmically, buddhically, and mentally. And the very first stanza that we read, we wondered if the first degree, second degree, and probably the intoning third, or whatever it was called, were not preparing the atmic, buddhic, and mental planes for the coming of the solar angels. Something like that is happening even right here. All right, let's go on and see what happens. They vibrated. They responded to the key, yet useless stood and uninhabited. All right, what does that say to us? Who is vibrating? The forms are vibrating. The molds are vibrating. The die is cast, right? They are vibrating. Okay. Now, what about all of our musical knowledge here when it comes to responded to the key? Well, these are notes, these are keys, these are pitches, because remember that it is, and it's specific. Creation is musical. The work of creating molds is musical collaboration. And didn't we kind of get that as we started to read? So DK says, every plane has its note. Every subplane has its note. Every plane has its key. It's pitched to a certain key. You know what a key is? It means that when you do a musical piece, you always come back to the same general chord or note. It's your reference point. So it is the major reference point in many, many notes that are found in a musical composition. You can wander all over the place, but you come back to the main reference point. So every plane has its main reference point, and every subplane has its own reference point, which is in relation to the greater reference point of the plane itself. So creation is musical. Creating of molds is a musical collaboration. And each plane and subplane has their own particular key or aspect of a key. These forms have been created through musical collaboration, and these forms or molds are justly tuned in relation to the third aspect of divinity. So we are in the world of the anima mundi, and we are doing collaborative musical work, attuning everything to everything else so we get very good forms. What happens if you have a group that's full of dissonant people? I know you've never been in one. Yes, and yes, it doesn't get done, and the group is always threatening to fall apart. Well, if that's where you feel, I'm leaving. Okay, whatever, like that. So it's the same process going on here, that if we are to make truly good archetypal forms, the constituents have to be in harmony with each other, and they know how to do that. So the molds are justly tuned in relation to the anima mundi, in relation to the soul of matter, in relation to the material aspect, Okay, not amaterial, but material. Okay, but since these forms represent only the third aspect of divinity, which is the usual way of looking at the anima mundi, although when you say soul of the world, it's a very inclusive thing, but usually the anima mundi is called or considered the soul of matter, right? So when you look at the third aspect of divinity that created these forms, the forms are not yet ensouled and are useless in the higher sense because they cannot yet, what can't they do? They can't respond to the purpose of the Solar Logos, which is a second-ray purpose backed by sort of a first-ray impulse. So the anima mundi is not sufficient to direct patterns towards a second-ray purpose which requires a higher type of consciousness. Only one of the sounds systemic has peeled forth, presumably that related to the third aspect of divinity, and perhaps to the first part of the second aspect of divinity, which creates molecular matter. We have not yet had the descent of the monads. What we've had so far is get atomic matter ready, get molecular matter ready, create some involutionary forms, but we don't really have the soul of the Solar Logos going into those forms. One does get the sense, however, that that which is created is more than atomic and molecular matter, but the archetypes, of that which is to manifest on the lower 18 subplanes. This would seem to make sense. More than just, and I've said that before, the coming together of molecular matter in certain prepared archetypal forms which have to descend, but not yet ensouled. Let's see if we can get these forms ensouled in any way. And I'll read this next part all together. The builder, oh wait, are we saying Om yet? No. Have we gone? We haven't gone. We've gone too far. Okay. They vibrated and responded to the key. Okay. Uninhabited. Okay. I already said that. Yet useless stood and uninhabited, unensouled. That's what we want to say, unensouled. Om, said the Mighty One, let the waters too bring forth. You see how we're moving down the keys. Now we're in the area of the 42-versed love song of the Solar Logos. Om, said the Mighty One, let the waters too bring forth. The builders of the watery sphere, the denizens of moisture, a denizen is someone who lives there, produced the forms that move within the kingdom of who? Varuna, who is he? He's really a son of Neptune, right? Varuna is the being who ensouls the astral plane of the earth scheme. Another being, unnamed and related to Varuna but greater, is the being that ensouls the astral body of the Solar Logos. Well, I just want to say the astral plane. Astral plane. Then another being still greater and also related to Neptune is the being who ensouls the cosmic astral plane. So you got cosmic astral plane, systemic astral plane, and Earth astral plane. And if you want to get the astral body of the solar logos, which one of those do you have to go to? Will Varuna do it? No, not really. Because the real astral body of the solar logos is found on the cosmic astral plane. And that being, there is that one being, without a name so far, who is the informing life of the cosmic astral plane, whereon the astral body of the solar logos can be found. When it comes to Varuna, in terms of the planetary logos, all he's really doing is ensouling the liquid aspect of the dense physical body of the planetary logos. And when it comes to the still higher being, higher than Varuna, he's informing the liquid aspect of the solar logos. You know, that's what the astral plane actually is. It's not his full astral body, but there are analogies. That's, yeah, it's emotional level. Emotional level. He says that if you test out the water of a planet, you can tell something about the condition of the astral body of the planetary deity. In other words, our liquid, our water condition on this planet reflects, if it can be understood, what the astral body of our planetary logos is like. Has our planetary logos overcome his astral body? Getting there, but not quite. Not quite. There's a big battle on the fourth subplane of the cosmic astral plane for our planetary logos, and he is not yet a cosmic initiate of the what degree? If you have not overcome your astral body to a reasonable extent, you are not yet a human initiate of the what degree? Second. And our planetary logos has not reached the cosmic second degree. Our solar logos has not yet reached the cosmic third degree. Sirius has reached the cosmic third degree. Let's see. Yes, that's right. And he's doing that at our expense. I mean, you know, as it were. All right. As DK says on 384, I wonder if I should say it anyway. He says something to the effect that our task is simply to suffer. That's how we can help. Okay, in other words, his is the consciousness at the center. It's really detached, and ours is the job of suffering. That's not exactly the words he used, but he did pretty much say that. It is their lot to suffer. As a matter of fact, since I've misquoted that so badly, I'm going to go there and quote it more properly. Because at least it gives us a sense of the value of suffering. Okay. He's in physical incarnation. He's midway through his path of cosmic initiation. He's to take the fourth initiation in this chain. Well may this globe, therefore, be considered the globe of sorrow and pain, for it is through our planetary logos, through it, that our planetary logos is undergoing what the mystics call the crucifixion. The cells in his body, those cells through which he feels and senses and experiences, and that's us, we ourselves, are in this world period rent by pain and suffering. For his is the consciousness at the center of the body, and theirs is the capacity to suffer. So that, by means of them, he may learn the meaning of systemic dispassion, be dissociated from all forms and material substance, and upon the cross of matter eventually find liberation and the freedom of the spirit. So he's on the cardinal cross, and on his own level is undergoing a kind of fourth minor initiation, preparing for a fifth major initiation, for a second major initiation, which may coincide with a fifth minor, kind of a 2 and 5 together. Anyway, so by suffering, we are helping him learn systemic dispassion. So we can be happy about being sad. It's a good thing. Okay. Now, onward. Anyway, we're in the kingdom of Varuna. They grew and multiplied, these forms. In constant flux they swayed. Each ebb of cosmic motion increased the endless flow. The ripple of the forms was seen. You get this feeling of seaweed, you know? You get this feeling of undulatory action, of dual action. The plane whereon the dual forces may be found. This is the astral plane. So now he is in process of writing his 42-verse love song of passion and desire. And it didn't help to get rid of Skype. There's a protest movement. It's Occupy My Computer. That's what's happening here. Well, shall we contemplate the circle? Okay. All right. Here we go. Hopefully that will work. Okay. All right. Oh, when it gets pale. All right. When it gets pale, things are in trouble. My computer has decided not to act in a Uranian manner. It is now acting very Saturnian. Everything is going in sequence. Bing, 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 bing. When that happens, you know you're slowed down to a crawl. But fortunately, we still have books, right? So if worse comes to worse, that's how we'll do it. All right. Om, said the mighty one, let the waters too bring forth. Forms are being brought forth under creative words of the Solar Logos. Now, probably every word is a little different, but Om, of course, is the main word. And then there are subsidiary words to affect the planes. Now we have 4 planes: atmic, buddhic, mental, and also the astral plane. The point of attention of the Solar Logos now is the astral plane. Just because a form is brought forth, we are told, does not mean that it is truly animated or ensouled by the second aspect of divinity. Look, when you are running around during your early part of life, being a personality for many, many lives, to what degree are you ensouled by the second aspect of divinity? You are sort of substandard, aren't you? In other words, it's there. The soul is there, and something is growing. But for the most part, you are active within the field of the third aspect of divinity, aren't you? Personality life is that. Then something happens. You have a crisis, whatever. You turn around. You repent. You start to look for something higher. Pretty soon you make application to the second aspect of divinity. Now you start to be what? A soul-infused personality. Do you feel like a soul-infused personality? I mean, on a good day? Yeah? Okay, well, we've turned around, and our matter, our anima mundi, our third aspect, is now accepting the second aspect. Now we're living a dual life, aren't we? The life of the second aspect and the life of the third aspect. That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to get into the solar system the second aspect. Now think about the coming of the solar angels. Or think about those times when there are many planetary logoi on which the sons of mind are really active. What does that signify for our solar logos? Our solar logos has an integration problem, right? What is his integration problem? What's he trying to integrate? Is he trying to integrate anything? How about his rays? How's he doing? Is his ray only ray 2? Okay, what ray did he have in the previous solar system? 3. Is that ray played out? That's called the primordial ray. It's very fully developed. What is the strength of his second ray, blue, in relation to his third ray, green? It's the beginning of cosmic fire. Not so strong. The second ray has not yet risen to its apotheosis. It's not at the peak. It's not overcome. Look, when can you say, finally, as they say, that your soul holds the majority of the stock in your company? So that the decision of your soul always overrides the decision of your personality. When does that happen? I think so, 3rd degree. That's when the blue overcomes the green. Our solar logos is not there. He's not yet mentally polarized. Even our solar logos is not there as a transfigured type A third degree cosmic initiate. He's not there yet. Sirius is there. There's no evil that can come into the sunshine of the major sun on Sirius. Our Earth is not there. Earth is blue-green. Our solar logos is blue-green. Even though he's called the blue logos, he hasn't overcome the green. He's overcome it more than our planetary logos has overcome it. Neptune is blue and a great help in building in the second aspect. Neptune has a beautiful blue. Neptune, you know, sort of Uranus is rather turquoise when you compare it to Neptune. So Neptune is the great monadic planet. It's a 6, it's a 4, it's a 2, the whole soft line ray. It's also a bit of Shiva on ray 1 as well. Okay, so we're not yet ensouled, and even as people, you and I are partially ensouled, aren't we, by the second aspect of divinity. By the time we reach the third initiation, we're safe. By the time we reach the fourth initiation, there's no question about who's in charge.
The royals in England, they have blue blood.
Blue, well, the second ray soul of Great Britain, you know. Blue blood, yes, yes. But the fields of green under Taurus are also important, aren't they? If you think about Britain, it has a lot of the nature Taurian element. And then, of course, the capital city is very important, isn't it? London has the 5th ray and the 7th ray. So that adds a great power to Britain. Now, what is your capital city? What is the capital city in your microcosm? You've got a ray chart, but your capital also ought to be important. What is it? What could I possibly be talking about? Is this just nonsense? Look, if a nation can have a capital city, you can have a capital chakra, can't you? Which is it? Well, it may be as different for everybody. For some people, it's the sacral center. Don't go there. All right. For other people, you know, it might be their throat or their heart or their head, whatever. You have a capital city somewhere. So,
But in Norway, the young people, they go around exposing their navel.
uh-huh. Okay, what do you think
That's
that...
what they want to express and show off. That's the sacral center.
Okay. That's well, that's the navel, of course, is, yeah, solar plexus particularly, yeah. Yeah, sort of halfway between. I guess we shouldn't wear turtleneck shirts.
Also, nothing in the back, so their pants are low down, so you can almost see their ass.
Yeah.
That must be the sacral.
Yes, yes, that's good. Okay, well, we're on our way. I see. Yeah, I see you've been very observant. Okay. Yeah, oh, that, he didn't specify.
That's amazing. The young people, that's what they show off.
Yeah, it is. It is actually. I've noticed that too, especially in McDonald's and other places. Can I serve you? All right. All right. We remember that it requires the first aspect of divinity to arrange the ensouling of forms by self-conscious entities, human beings. Well, the Manu and his department are responsible for creating these elemental forms. Okay. Now we're getting near the upward arc. We're getting there now, okay? On the upward arc of the second outpouring, various subconscious forms manifest. But here is the question. Have the archetypes for these manifestations been created by this threefold process we are now discussing, a process focusing on the atmic, buddhic, and mental planes? By this threefold. In other words, where did all these plant forms come from? Where did the designs for the minerals come from? What about the designs for the animal kingdom? Where do these designs come from, really? And I think they are coming from the cosmic ethers, basically, and from also maybe the mental ethers. It's not just an accident, is it, that certain forms appear? I mean, do you think the elephant is an accident? Do you think the horse or the lion or the dog is an accidental form that would just kind of evolve because certain forces came together and just by chance made that form? Or is the elephant, dog, tiger, whatever, an idea in the mind of our planetary logos? What do you think? I know what Stephen Hawking thinks.
What does he say?
He thinks that it's not intelligent design. You know, intelligent design can create strange bedfellows. You know, some of the very strict, narrow creationists would be in the same boat with the occultists on intelligent design, wouldn't they? There's a whole big, you know, discussion going on in our country right now. We have these very radical Republicans over here pushing intelligent design and creationism and a literal God and 7 days and all the rest of it. And we have the atheistic socialists and all that on the other side rebuking the whole idea. But in some ways, the occultists are closer to the people that are promoting intelligent design, which the Pope has been promoting. You know, of course, they can use that as kind of a wedge to bring in the dogma of their own religion. But we all believe in intelligent design, don't we? We believe in great logoi, great minds, great creators who preconceive with cosmic ideation that which is to appear, even the horse, the dog, the elephant, the tiger, whatever. Where do those forms start? Probably in the mind of God, you know, and probably on the cosmic mental plane, and probably they descend into the ethers, and probably in the ethers they are taken up as molds, and then they have to be animated. Evolution is the attempt in the world of becoming to approximate the ideal forms and archetypes which have been created in the mind of God. Evolution is an ongoing effort by lower forces to approximate the design which is sounding in the higher ethers and is sponsored by the higher forces. It's not just, you know, a random kind of anything could come out. Now, there are some mistakes that are made where anything could come out, but those anythings get destroyed. If they are not resonant with the higher archetypes, this is Plato speaking in a way, you know, if they are not resonant with the higher archetype, they will not last, because they're out of the support range. They will not be supported by the divine mind. And unless you are congruent with the divine mind, you will be destroyed eventually. Isn't that? They accept evolution. Yeah. Exactly. There is a blueprint. And that's something that, of course, the modern, intelligent, atheistic, you know, non-theistic individual does not accept. And we accept that. We're very Platonic. Those mystery schools out of which we came are Platonic and Pythagorean.
We may actually say that all the aspects made of the even numbers, opposition, square, sextile.
Aspects made of even numbers, opposition, square, and tectiles. They'll approach the statement. They want to approximate it towards the archetypes. The even numbers. You mean like the opposition, square, etc.? So that is the wrestling towards the approximation of the archetype. And when we have the blue line, so to speak, it means that it's closer. It has reached that without the struggle.
All of those aspects, they struggle towards that approximation.
Okay, so in other words, let's just say the red lines, those hard aspects, they struggle towards what?
The odd numbers, conjunction, trine, and so forth, they represent the will aspect.
Okay, conjunction, the trine too, the will aspect?
1, 3, 5, 7.
Uh-huh.
Conjunction, trine,
Quintile, septile, all represent
they are anchored in one.
in one. Okay,
Hard line.
in the hard line, anchored in the hard line. Okay.
Spirit aspect.
Okay, and what about the
Others are the matter aspect.
2, 4, and 6?
Approximation to the spirit.
Approximation of spirit. Okay. Well, you know, the interesting thing is DK, he turned it around when he talked about rays. He says 2, 4, and 6 represent the life aspect. They are abstracted and abstract. And 1, 3, 5, 7 represent the form. And 1, 3, 5, 7 represent the occultist. 2, 4, 6 represent the mystic on the life side. So he seemed to turn it in another direction. Well, anyway, I think these are interesting ideas. I think the idea of the world of becoming, approximating the world of being, is something that we have from Greek philosophy. We have it from Plato, we have it from Pythagoras, we have it from the mystery schools, and this is something that is running through this teaching. that on the etheric levels there are molds, there are patterns, there are blueprints. And in the world of chaos, there is the need for those chaotic elements to accrete in a certain configuration because of the magnetic power of the archetype, the mold. So all of us are trying to become what we really are, you know, etherically, or cosmic etherically, yes. Yes, 7 will be ideal because it is the most etherically attuned of the rays. It will be ideal to bringing heaven to earth and bringing the higher molds down into the world of becoming in such a way that they really anchor. So 7th ray we should, well, of course, then we have to be very careful because 7th ray has such a marvelous materializing ability that if they want to materialize selfishly, they can do that too. And if they materialize selfishly, their reference point will always be their lower ego. They will not resonate to the plan. They'll just always come back and say, what do I desire? It'll be the materializing power plus their will plus their desire nature. And they will bring in, as mental magicians, whatever they want. And that, you know, it's very different. It's not personal. The artist of the future is an impersonal artist. He's not someone who just expresses what he feels. It's not about that. It's about tuning into archetypes. So the 4th ray, the 7th ray, they both need to be impersonal in the future. Okay, the builders of the watery sphere. What are they? We note the term builders. They're called Agnisurians in general. The builders of the watery sphere are that. And I just talked a little bit earlier about the higher Agnisurians as being the essence of Buddhi, but there are also their reflections on the astral plane. There are many, many varieties, so many varieties. DK is just leaving all these out. Here, you may remember just a few of these builders and what they're doing. Let's see. Let's see the fire. Let's see fire, sex. Somewhere, I think I may be able to find it here. It's in sex impulse 2, 3. Okay, here it is. Look at these. This is these are examples of some of the Agnisurians. Permanent atom, substance, physical incarnation, those devas who form the liquid aspect of the physical body, a group of devas who form the desire body of the great entity who ensouls the animal kingdom, certain devas who, being of the 3rd order, form the heaven of the average Christian believer, whereas other devas, these are all Agnisurians, form the hell on the 7th plane of the same class of thinker, the devas who form astral life of any thought form. These are all Agnisurians. These are all these builders of different kinds. A mysterious group of devas connected with sex expression. There's also devas connected with the Lodge of Masters who work to build the aspirational forms towards which men aspire on the astral plane, and so forth. Group of devas connected with the path of the heart. A group of devas of all degrees and vibratory capacity who make up the bulk of the desire forms of every kind, the devas of transmutative force, so many different kinds. Many, many different kinds of Agnisurians. So these builders, we're just given the ABC of who they are, but he just kind of elaborated a little bit here about the astral plane, saying that these kinds of different occult forces exist. You know, we don't have to think about devas as having 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. I mean, they do have foreheads, apparently, some of them. He does say they carry on their forehead the moon. But they are forces of nature, intelligent and semi-intelligent, individualized and non-individualized forces of nature. That's really what they are. So a lot of the study of the devas is going to come in through the 5th ray types. They're studying energy. The next thing you know, they're going to be studying devas. They'll make that bridge. They'll make the transition. They're doing it now. Okay. Only they don't, excuse me, have the terminology. So we have the builders of the watery sphere. They are of many varieties, and I just showed maybe 10 different varieties in DK's discussion of Agnisurians. You see it? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to have to strike a bargain with my computer here. Okay. I think he's being overloaded. I think it has something to do with GoToWebinar, frankly. Perhaps while the computer is malfunctioning would be a moment for me to ask if there are any questions. Okay, the denizens of moisture, the builders of the watery sphere, the denizens of moisture, okay, produce that form, the forms that move within the kingdom of Varuna, the lord of the liquid body of the planetary logos. Okay, they grew and multiplied. You get the idea of fecundity here, lots of. Because water always promotes the development of forms, the great abundance. In constant flux, they swayed. Why does he use a word like sway? Undulate, sway. Yes, and the idea of waves are found in water, right? Very visible waves. And the idea of dual forces, the plane whereon the dual forces can be sought are seen. So it's the seventh level, the seventh rule of magic, dual forces sought. Here it is. Right. That's right. They can be swayed in any direction. Yeah. The dual forces of the plane whereon the vital power must be sought are seen. Two paths. The poles vibrate. A choice. It's always duality. As a matter of fact, modern humanity is on the path of astral duality at the moment, and the nature of their desires will decide the issue. Disciples are found in Scorpio, and the nature of their thoughts will decide the issue for them. So we have this possibility of the pairs of opposites being encountered right here on the astral plane. It's the battleground of the pairs of opposites. Okay. All right. In constant flux, they swayed. Characterized by incessant movement, they are not so stable. Sometimes we look at thought forms or desire forms. Leadbeater tells us, what about the stability of the two relative to each other? Thought forms are concrete. Desire forms are very fluid. So he's talking about the instability on the astral plane. I'm remembering that some of the people, DK, he gave a statement to them and he said, your name, your second name is stability. This is one of your keynotes. Invariably, they had an astral issue. They needed stability. Even people who are, this man who was going through maybe the second initiation, stability was one of his keynotes. The word swayed is interesting. Oscillation is here. The dual forces of the astral plane, yes. The seaweed, aquatic plant life, the swaying, the waves, and less stability. Okay. We're making it. Each ebb of cosmic motion increased the endless flow. What kind of motion? Well, there's an ebb and flow, of course. The waters ebb and flow. That's the 8th rule of magic. But why cosmic motion? We have heard of the cosmic note which underlay the activity of the solar logos on the solar mental plane. Once cosmic energy has reached the cosmic physical plane and works there, is the motion which it produces on the systemic planes considered cosmic motion because it originated on cosmic planes? Why cosmic motion? Any ideas? Each ebb, now an ebb is pulling back. An ebb, when the tide ebbs, you see the beach. The water goes out. And then when the tide flows. So this constant duality is going on here in relation to this unstable, fluid, wave-like plane. But I'm trying to think of what is cosmic motion. Coming from where and coming from what? What is it? It is that. The ebb and flow is kind of like that. But where is it coming from? Is it coming from the cosmic astral plane? Or when things happen on the higher cosmic physical plane, is it considered cosmic motion? Because it's the cosmic ethers. See, is cosmic motion coming from the cosmic ethers or the cosmic astral? Let's just ask this. Something is affecting the astral plane. So is cosmic motion to be found on the cosmic etheric planes, then affecting the lower solar planes, including the astral plane. Maybe. In other words, our higher ethers are called cosmic ethers. Buddhic, Atmic, etc. That's cosmic ethers. Okay, so there. And where did all this stuff come from? Om, said the Mighty One. Where's he talking from? The higher planes are involved here, right? And the Atmic, Buddhic, monastic, and astral planes are being affected. But I think cosmic motion, I don't know if we have to go all the way to the cosmic astral plane. Maybe, Master, maybe we do not have to go to the cosmic astral plane to find cosmic motion. Okay. We seem to be dealing with the increasing motion, increasing ebbs and flows, reinforcing each other and expanding forms. So the formal fecundity of the creative process is increasing. More forms are being created now on the astral plane. The ripple of the forms was seen. Well, you know, when you throw something in the water, that's the ripple effect. The wave-like generation of forms is seen. The ripple effect is influential far beyond the original point of contact. We can imagine that this increased motion on the astral plane will have its physical plane effects. The ripple effect. Sometimes what do they call it in economics? The trickle-down effect, you know. So when there's a wave, it affects many, many things. We've made our way through the cosmic astral plane. Not cosmic astral plane, just regular old astral plane. Is anybody having an astral reaction yet? We have only one more plane to go. Actually, the astral plane is the plane that we go to when we sleep. So I find that this is actually suitable study at this moment. It's only 3:23. Am I going to be the only one smiling by the time this class is over? All right. Are there any questions? Om, said the Mighty One. We are descending all the way from the top to the bottom, and we have just created a plethora of forms. They're very unstable. They're in wave-like motion. They're going to have the ripple effect. Because, you know, just imagine how one form affects another in a fluid medium. Just imagine. Have you ever seen oil kind of hanging in water? And then, you know, along comes the movement of the water and changes right away the form of the oil, or, you know, something suspended. In this wave-like medium, this liquid medium, the forms are very amorphous. They don't have these strong outer boundaries, and the ripple effect can really change things strongly. If someone's looking at your desire body that doesn't have those clean, clear-cut forms that your mental body has, the forms are not chunky and solid and concrete. They are fluid. Have you ever felt your emotions changing fluidly on you? One emotion going into another? Oh, yes, yeah. Yeah, and 1 second, you know, 1 second they're like this, and the next second it's just very changeable and fluid in that respect. All right, now let's deal with matter. Are you ready? Boy, if creation takes this long, who wants it? I mean, you know, this has taken almost a whole day to create the solar system. Really? It's too long, don't you think? Okay. Om, said the Mighty One, let the builders deal with matter. Finally, we get down to the cosmic etheric subplanes. The lowest of the cosmic etheric, turns his attention to the lowest of the cosmic dense subplanes, the systemic etheric physical plane, and even that is matter. So the molten solidified, now we're down here on our planetary level, aren't we? This is not the sun. This is the rocks out there, you know, Mercury, all the rest of them. Planetary reference involving the solidification of our planet, or at least a planet. What is it? Molten. Molten is if you heat up a rock, like what's going on inside a volcano. You see that real hot fluid that's liquefied rock. Melted. Yeah. Those are they have a very, very high boiling point, and there's molten lead, molten metal. It's the liquid state of a normally solid substance through extreme heating. Yeah, it implies, because if you melt ice and it turns to water, it's fluid, but you don't call it molten because its temperature is not that strong, right? Not that high. Okay. All right. So it's about a planet. We're dealing with the creation of the planet Earth, let us say. The solid forms were built. We're getting down towards the mineral kingdom. The crust cooled. This almost sounds like a science book. The rocks congealed. Congealed means to lower your temperature, and instead of being fluid, it becomes more concrete. So we've made our way all the way down to the pre-mineral kingdom. Don't forget, it all started with Om. Now, we're not taught that in school, are we? We're talking, we start with the Earth. The Earth was once a comet or whatever. The Earth was very hot, and the Earth cooled down, but there's no Om in it, is there? So we need to change the minds of those who direct the education of young people to include Om. Who would like to volunteer? I think Finn is in good place to do that now. I mean, give the newspapers a little something else to talk about. All right, the rocks congealed. So we are definitely, now here we have to almost go back to the Stanzas of Dzyan of the Secret Doctrine. A lot of this is found there. The creation of our planet and the two higher words are not dealt with. No, AUM is all that's dealt with, not AU and A. The builders wrought in tumult to produce the forms of Maya. Maya, what is tumult? Yep, tumultuous. Things are. It's chaotic. It's noisy. It's violent. Things are banging against each other. There are these lower builders are working in a very chaotic world to build the mineral kingdom. A great disorder, and that's why it's called Maya. The world illusion. Okay. We are dealing with the preparation of all the forms which will manifest upon the dense physical planet. Presumably, we're right down to Earth at this time. Okay. Are there any questions? All right, we're down to the rocky strata. When the rocky strata were completed, the work stood in completion. We have reached the bottom of the second outpouring. We have not yet begun to ascend. We're about to ascend. How long has this taken? Yes, I know, 6 hours. How long? Well, what does science say about how long this took? Well, that's a simplification. A lot of people would really like that. Can you imagine? We have we have politicians in our country that are now pushing for the teaching of literal creationism as an alternative to science. After all, science is just a theory, they say. So we have many sixth-ray souls in our country, and they want to get back to the literal interpretation of the Bible in the schools, so that evolution, which is not real, can be gradually crowded out. So this is a little bit on the ignorant side, This is not yet happening in Denmark, is it? How about England? Well, something else, not there. Not creationism. Something else will come in. But, England doesn't have so much seventh ray. Sixth ray. Sorry. Sixth ray. Yes, it almost happened, but it's very interesting. The Republican nomination process is a bit like a shooting gallery. There's always a new front runner. He stands up and gets shot, subsides, and a new beaming face is right there in front of you. They all are terribly flawed. you kind of have to look at what a nation produces in terms of its leaders. This is, I saw, yeah, I mean, come on, where are the people that can really do something? I heard a speech by Franklin Delano Roosevelt the other day. I saw him. It was at the time I was interested in the Finnish war with Russia, and I was looking at how he was commenting on Russia's attack on Finland. And this was a true leader. This was somebody who had power, articulation, magnetism, principles, purpose. Where are they? And well, of course, the thing was that Roosevelt was a disciple. He says that great disciple. Here's a man who had polio, so basically he came back from this debilitating condition. He's Aquarius and Virgo. He's a second-degree initiate, at least, maybe more. And he fought his way out of debilitation in order to lead a great part of the free world. The same with Churchill in a certain respect, Many personal problems, but something was there. A brilliant mind, vision, courage, all the rest of it. So, you kind of look for someone like that who's not just a demagogue to emerge. I mean, a demagogue is always playing on the emotions of people for selfish purposes. And it does take sacrifice to step into those kinds of roles, of course. Anyway, the work is completed. We reached the bottom of the turn, finally, at last. So the creation of the mineral kingdom is there. The second outpouring is beginning to come up now. So this confirms that the stanza deals not only with the first orphohatic outpouring, but also the form-building outpouring, the second, at least up to the point where the mineral kingdom is created. Minerals are transitional. They are alive, after all. They are the first kingdom of nature. They have the monad underneath them. The monad is metallized. Maybe it's not stoned. Sometimes the monad is called the stone, and maybe we will get into that. Maybe we'll get into that one where the monad is called the stone. And I love the end of it. They pull out all the stones out of all of the forms they've been in, and it says, "And lo, the stones were one." It's so totally monadic, It's a great part of these one of these stanzas. So. The builders of the lowest grade announced the work was finished. Announcing is kind of interesting. It must be a sound. There must be some climactic sound that peals forth from the builders of the lower grade that indicates that this work of densification is finished. Now for evolution. We have not had evolution yet, have we? We've only had involution. We've had, actually, this is a fourfold process. The first outpouring goes down. The second outpouring curves down. Those two are both involutionary. Building forms, preparing matter, building forms. Now, the second part of the second outpouring starts to rise. Up like this, comes to this point, and then is met by the descent of the third outpouring, or the monad coming to meet the uprising, man. Sorry, missed, try the solar system over again. There are really 4 phases, aren't there? 4 phases. The first 2 are involutionary, the second 2 are evolutionary. The rising of the forms and the descent of the monad in order to, if I be lifted up, will draw all men unto me, that's actually evolutionary. Okay. So an announcement goes forth. The work is finished. What is the work? Shall we say it is the work of manifestation? It is the work of manifestation undertaken planetarily by Brahma Fohat, the Brahma Fohat aspect of the Solar Logos in relation to our planet. Okay, we're now ready to make the turn. And actually, there's not, that much more of this stanza. It's pretty easy to understand what's going to happen next. So probably after we take our break, it won't take too long for us to deal with evolution, but not the entirety of evolution, just up to the forming of the causal body. So we've just created the mineral kingdom, and that's not bad in 6 hours. Okay, forth from the rocky strata emerged the covering. Next, the builders of the second agreed the work was done. The first and second on the upward way stood forth in fourfold form. Again, fourfold were the forms. Now they have fourfold form too, don't they? In other words, what was created above in fourfold form is now reflected below. The inner five was somewhat seen by those whose sight was keen. I wonder who they are. All right. What is suggested to you by this paragraph? The word covering. Covering. From the rocky strata emerged the covering. Next. I believe it's vegetation. In other words, what is it that, have you ever been to places where it's just rocks? But occasionally there's a little bit of vegetation, but, places where it's just a desert of rocks, that's all. There are places in the north that are like that, and to a degree, desert areas where you have all this ground up rock, which we call sand. But there's always a little vegetation somewhere, except in the most barren, absolutely barren places. No covering. Now, and that, of course, is a very dangerous condition. Master Morya blames people who create deserts. He said, what offense is involved in the creating of deserts? And he talks about the creeping deserts on our planet. They are, slowly expanding because of the sins of man. Okay, so that covering, which is connected with Venus, the vegetable kingdom, is disappearing. This is very dangerous. It will, not produce the oxygen that we need, and it represents that we're losing touch with Venus. We can't do that. So the builders of the second agreed the work was done. What is the second? What is the first? Rock is the first, and vegetation is the second. We call it the mineral kingdom, we call it the vegetable kingdom, right? The first and second on the upward way stood forth in fourfold form. Well, it seems to me that there are 7 forms in each one of these kingdoms. 7 types of gems, 7 major mineral groups. But maybe, I don't know, maybe there's a classification according to 4 as well. I believe there's a 7 and a 4. I keep on thinking, what are the forms being created here? He seems to be classifying them into 4 major areas. Does anybody know enough about the mineral kingdom to classify them in 4 general groups? Mineral kingdom? There's gems, there's metals, there's earths, I don't know what. I don't know it well enough. But maybe there's possibility of classifying into 4 groups. What about the plant kingdom, the vegetable kingdom? Is there any 4-fold classification? I mean, there's many 7-fold classifications, but are there 4 large groups for the vegetable kingdom? Well, there are certainly, what are there? Flowers, there are trees, there are shrubs. You have to go much lower, though, because there's these tiny little forms of life. Someone who's more on the 5th ray with botany needs to get into this. But anyway, there's 4 types of forms. Fourfold form. There's 4 large classification. The inner 5 was somewhat seen by those whose sight was keen. Who are the inner 5? And who are the ones with keen sight? Now remember, this is a time, I suppose, when only rocks and vegetables are existing. I mean, not vegetables, but the vegetable kingdom. Okay, so this is the covering of the rocky strata. The secret doctrine is getting into this. Well, the animal mundi is... well, okay. Whenever I think of the 5, I'm looking for the higher principles. I'm looking, the 5 is mind. The 5 is also the Agnishvatas. So we're looking at the second kingdom of nature. Let's see. Presumably the forms of which we are speaking are animated form, though not self-consciously ensouled, but we are at least dealing with the archetypes. They're rising toward the archetype. We're dealing with the great entity who is the Lord of the vegetable kingdom and the great entity who is the Lord of the mineral kingdom. They stood forth in fourfold form. The upward way is the way of evolution. The upward way, okay? The upward way representatives represent the second and evolutionary phase of the second outpouring. That's clear. Okay, RP. Which produces recognizable kingdoms in nature. When speak of the fourfold form, we seem to be indicating the form of the 4 systemic ethers, but only perhaps. But maybe they are classifications of the forms of the 4 major forms in those 2 kingdoms. I know that metals are 1. I know that gems are 1. But as for the other 2, I'm not sure. Okay. Classifications. The systemic ethers are, when compared to the systemic dense physical subplanes, archetypal. Well, that's possible. Perhaps all the forms of the lower kingdoms, in this case the mineral and vegetable, have archetypal forms on the 4 levels of the systemic ethers. I believe that's true. I believe that's true. Often we speak of 7 divisions within each kingdom. We do. If you've ever read that book called 777, which is a book that Aleister Crowley stole from W. Wynne Westcott, of the early ritualistic 7th ray work. Westcott had all these papers, and of course, Crowley grabbed them. But he gave tremendous correspondences in the back of the book. And you find the 7 perfumes and the 7 types of gems, and there are all kinds of 7s that are there. I remember, and they're 1 for each of the rays, of course. The amethyst, the ruby, I don't know what the 5th ray is. Maybe topaz is in there somewhere. The emerald is there. The sapphire is there. The diamond is there. Diamonds are 1. Okay. Well, you know more about that. I know that emeralds are 3, and the sapphires are 2. Agates? Well, some of these are composites. So the question is, how pure is it? Ruby is considered ray 6 because the redness of it, and there's a yellow stone and a orange stone, which are for 4 and 5. And one of them I thought is topaz, and I'm not sure exactly of the... And remember that many of these things have subsidiary colors. You have probably diamonds of all different shades, and maybe sapphires of many different shades as well, although some of them are more limited towards a particular color. So, red sapphire as well. Oh, how interesting. How interesting. So anyway, we have to have 7 subrays of a ray. So we have to have really 49 different types in the mineral kingdom, 49 different types in the plant kingdom. One day in the new schools, somebody will actually have the scientific acumen, the research, the patience to get all of this together. But at least DK points at it. Yeah, okay. The inner 5 are somewhat seen by those whose sight was keen. Now, what could they be? So who's doing the seeing? Man apparently does not exist. Are we speaking of the self-conscious devas who are responsible for the creative process we have been discussing? Are these the ones who can see? Who can see? Man's not here yet. But there are many seers, aren't they? So somehow, if you have self-consciousness and sensitivity, something can be seen. Who are the inner 5? Do the inner 5 relate to the coming 5th kingdom of nature, which is slowly approaching, preparing to create man? Can it be that? Can it be the 5th creative hierarchy, awaiting the 5th creative hierarchy, which will produce man? A certain point on the upward arc must be reached before the members of the 5th creative hierarchy can take the forms created by the anima mundi and create truly self-conscious life in the form of man. But it took a long time for them to approach. You know, we say, oh, they flashed forth. But I found references, and I think I read it to you, that the creation of the causal body is slow. Very, very slow. It's sort of gathering while animal man has a little bit of intelligence growing on the mental plane. Then the causal body is slowly growing. That sounds like the old method of doing it, but he does talk about it. Slow growth of the causal body. You were going to say?
This man who's been produced here, is that the man produced before the moon chain, or was man produced on the moon chain?
Okay. This is going to be, DK takes jumps in these stanzas. He starts out in a cosmic process. The next thing you know, he's in the fourth chain of the fourth of our scheme. So we're not even going to the moon chain. We're not producing man on the moon chain. We are, in fact, right here on our own chain, because that's where the solar angels came in, and they didn't come in before. And I think you'll see that this discussion on the cosmic mental plane is all about those beings coming in. So you have to be very alert to where the jumps are occurring. Doesn't he say there's somewhere beings similar to man who came to Earth? Some beings similar to man who came to Earth. Well, when we studied the egoic lotuses, we learned about lotuses coming in from other planets. And they had petals unfolded and all of that. But what we studied in Cosmic Fire about those lotuses was all about the fourth round of the fourth chain. We never studied the moon chain except to discuss the method of individualization on the moon chain, which was gradual approximation. Okay. So anyway, the fifth creative hierarchy, the solar angels, they actually looked in the second round, even though they were going to work in the fourth round. They looked in at various places along the developmental path. They were here. They're part of our planet. And they were biding their time until the forms were properly created. All right. So those whose sight was keen, whatever Deva agencies they were, or self-conscious beings, or Rajadeva lords, or individualized beings who were not man, those whose sight was keen, what about them? The inner five was somewhat seen by those whose sight was keen. In others, they are approaching the inner five. Now, what other things could we say? Inner five kingdoms? I don't think so. Nobody's looking for the solar kingdom now and the planetary kingdom and all the rest. I think we're talking about this fifth creative hierarchy and the five principles of man. Om, said the Mighty One, and gathered his breath. So there's a reference to the first aspect of divinity, because the breath is going to be a fiery kind of stream which is going to affect a change. This is expected, it's an ingathering on the upward arc. So this is an ingathering. Evolution is the result of the intake of breath. The spark within the peopling third impelled to further growth. That is a loaded sentence. The spark within the peopling third, a very unusual term. Who would write such things? The peopling third. What does it suggest to us? Let's see. Let's look back over here. Okay. Sight was keen. Om, said the Mighty One, gathered in his breath, obviously preparing to do something else. You don't take a breath unless you're going to do something. You know, it's like a magical process. The big intake, conceive, and start the process going. I believe we are. I believe when he says the third, it's the animal kingdom. But why does he call it the peopling third? And what's the spark? The spark is not the monad per se, in this case, although the monad is sometimes called the spark hanging from the flame, by the finest thread of Fohat. What's the spark? And why is it the peopling third? Why that? Well, people are going to come out of the third, aren't they? They are going to come out of the third. And they're going to come out of the third because the spark exists. And that spark is an evocation which arose on the mental plane as instinct approximated mentality. So I've just given the same definition for another unit of life, namely the mental unit. In other words, the basis of the concrete mind. I'm not talking about now the monad. This is something else which has the power to make intelligence and consciousness grow. So the spark within the peopling third impelled to further growth. This mental unit is being evoked as the animal kingdom becomes more and more intelligent, and because it's invoked, it has some kind of resonance with the higher intelligence, and therefore it is pushing ahead towards the growth, toward the fourth kingdom. The peopling third, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it's the animal kingdom, the peopling third. The fact that the fourth kingdom of nature emerges out of the third. What is the spark? Are we speaking of the spark of mind? Probably. It's not the implantation of the spark of mind, but we can consider this, if we consider the monad as the spark, then the spark is found in the nucleus of all life, yes, but there's one other thing. But what about the mental unit as a spark? And I think that is a good guess, and later it seems to be confirmed. So probably we are speaking of further growth beyond the first and second kingdoms and into the third, which eventually will give rise to people or the fourth kingdom. Let's just say the spark arises as an evocation within the third. Okay, within the third, the mental unit arising as instinct, approximated mentality, later in the third. Because there's the third and then there's the peopling third. You know, you're not going to get your crocodile or Eriops or relative dinosaur. They are not going to produce man. I was talking to my friend and he said the dinosaurs died out when man came in. That's not exactly what science says today. But you know, well, okay, look. A Tyrannosaurus was 18 feet high. Man of that period was 100 feet high. So you can sort of kick your Tyrannosaurus away and not worry, except maybe he'll bite you in the leg. But, you know, I know it sounds very strange, but these were huge forms. Man is the macrocosm of these animal forms, especially of the mammal forms. Bones. The bones are beneath the sea. That's what we're told. And they're also kept in caves, and they will be revealed when the time is right. Well, look, either HPB is busy with the greatest fairy tale or fabrication that's ever been written for humanity, or truth is stranger than fiction. Do you believe there could be who? Oh, yes. Well, there are bones of giants. She documents all kinds of things about the finding of that. 15 feet tall and so forth, but those are relatively small. Atlanteans, on the average, were 25, 27 feet tall, and you go back to Lemuria, it was still greater. Sometimes we say, oh, look at those tiny little Australopithecus men. They're only 4 feet tall. But that was apparently in one of those dips between civilizations when humanity degenerated and fell down into a very small stature. So apparently the secret doctrine, you know, people would laugh you out of the court, you know. They say, well, what are you doing? This is fanciful. But HPB documents all this stuff, and those statues that were recently destroyed in Afghanistan, apparently those Buddhas were actually literal representations of the stature of the huge ancient men. You know, and she does talk about how some of the pre-individualized men were just massive and terrible and ferocious, you know. Yeah, the giants are found in a lot of lore. A lot of lore. I think we have to, believe in the giants to a degree. And, when HPB calls us pygmies, she's not just talking about our moral and mental character. She's actually looking at our stature relative to these immense. Apparently, the members of the fourth root race in the fourth sub-race were huge, powerful, beautiful, godly, and proud. So that was the downfall of them. All right, well, let's see where we are, because it's almost time for us to take our little break. The spark is arising, and the builders of the lowest forms, they manipulated the densest Maya, which is the lowest subplanes. They merged their production with the forms built by the watery ones. So we have now the fusion of earth and water, the watery ones of the astral plane. Matter and water merged. So it seems very important when producing the third kingdom that astrality and dense life merge. Do animals of the higher kind have the astral body? I think very definitely, don't they? You really begin to see the astral body at work. What you see in the plant kingdom at first is sentiency. And this man, this Dr. Bose, was that his name? In India, one of the early theosophical guys, he proved that metals have sentiency too. They suffer fatigue and they can die and all the rest of it. So it's even more so with the sentiency of the plants. The various experiments about playing different kinds of music for plants, and how they react to that. And certainly sentiency in the astral body is really growing by the time we reach the animal kingdom. So the water, matter and water, oftentimes occultly synonymous, but they are merging here, because matter means the outer plane, water means the astral plane. You produce the third, or the animal kingdom. Okay. Plants do not have, or at least are not developed as noticeable, do not have a fully developed astral nature, but they do have a variety of sensitivities, and the animals have. Yes.
Is the reason for the sort of circular sphere of planets?
Well, how would that be? I mean, maybe, I don't know.
How does she think about
That every hylozoism and every form of life has sentiency and is ensouled, but it is very primitive and completely unconscious. We call it chemical reactions, affinity, disaffinity, and so forth. She says that is a form of sentiency, a form of consciousness, and there is no inanimate matter. Now, what is anima? Anima is soul, right? No inanimate matter. All matter has consciousness. But to tell you the truth, I never read that book. Is it a good book? Well, I'll tell you what. At the end of my career, I will read that book. Why not put everything backwards? Main thrust of the book of consciousness of the atom. We're all in communication. All parts of our body are in communication with one another. And we are all in communication with the great lords. We're all atoms of some kind or another. Every part of everything has an intelligence. Yeah, well, that's true, because the word atom is a very ubiquitous word. It's a protean word. It's used on many, many levels, isn't it? The solar logos is an atom, planet, human being, atom. Even a subatomic particle, I suppose, is an atom. All right, we're so close to the end, but still I think we should take our break, because the Mighty One has to approve of the work. And I'm at this point, I'm just summarizing. I'm not going to read all this stuff that I've written, but we are reaching stanza 3, and we're almost done with stanza 2. Then we'll have a little summary for those that still remain alive. Om, said the Mighty One. Okay. Why not take a break? I know it's so difficult to get up off those chairs after being sort of welded to them in rapt attention. All right. We'll see you soon. See you soon. The Mighty One is going to approve of this whole thing. The forms met his approval. The Mighty One looked down. Okay. Okay. Yes, I think I'm just going to have to kind of wing it and not read these things. Okay. All right. Where are we? Okay, friends who are with us electronically, we have some of us. And we're going to take a 15-minute break now and continue with stanza 2. We're almost finished, and maybe we'll have a chance for one more smaller stanza. We seem to be doing about 2 a day. They are deep. The symbolism is not always transparent, but we're getting some idea of the creative process in this one. And then the coming of the solar angels we've had, and the struggles of humanity within the cave of darkness, and the breaking of the astral, breaking of the causal body at the 4th initiation, and finally the timing of incarnation of the monads and solar angels. That was the 4th one we read. And now this, which is the whole creative process of our solar logos, and partially of our planetary logos, how the solar logos' creativity affected what happened on Earth. Because after all, we do have a major initiation, well, an important initiation, probably the 4th in a sequence of 9, being taken by our solar logos on our particular planetary scheme, and especially on our chain, through our chain. So solar logoic events are going on here on our planet. And so DK switches immediately from the solar logos, who could be creating all of these planets, to conditions on our particular planet. And we will see how it ends. I think it ends with the sort of evocation of the solar angels. So we'll just take a little break here, and we will try to revive the dead. You know, the old commentary here, the stanzas of Dzyan, are extraordinarily deep and require a lot of mental energy when you are attempting to understand them. So people can be excused from passing out, Okay.